Hi, welcome to a new episode of PhotoshopLightroomTV. This is our first episode this year. I'm Marek Mularczyk, your host from sitetrain.co.uk, and welcome to the first episode of PhotoshopLightroomTV in 2011. This is episode 25. I would like to start by thanking you all for watching PhotoshopLightroomTV. That's the reason why I'm doing it. So you enjoy it, so you learn new things about Photoshop, Lightroom, Adobe Bridge as well. Okay. Now, new year, new episodes, and new tips, tricks, techniques, new features. This week I've got 3 tutorials for you, and just to make it more interesting, there's one in Photoshop, there's one in Lightroom, and there's one in Bridge. I've also got a very interesting tip of the week for you as usual. So let's move on and let's start with the first tutorial in Adobe Photoshop. In this tutorial I'm going to show you something really interesting that deals with HDR. So let's have a look on that. Here I am in Photoshop and I'm going to show you how to create a very interesting HDR effect with a series of images. The effect I'm about to create is on my blog, PhotoshopLightroomTV.co.uk, and I'm just going to show you what we'll be creating here. It's this image here. Looks very interesting, very surrealistic. And what's interesting is that you can clearly see the highlights, these areas here, and the shadows as well. I'll show you the images and you'll see how the original images looked. So I'm going to minimize that, and here in Photoshop this is the darkest image. This is the lightest image. So you can hardly see anything here in the corner. Okay, I'm just going to open one of the images to show you, let's say maybe this one here. I'll just drag and drop it from the mini bridge and I'll just press OK. This is the image. Okay, so you can hardly see anything here in the corner. I'm just going to close that and I'll show you the darkest image. That's the darkest image. And this shows all the highlights, all the detail in the highlights here. And the brightest image is this one here that shows you clearly the shadow areas. So I've got 5 images here. I'm going to use the JPEGs because it's just faster than using raw images. I used the raw images in the original that you can see on the PhotoshopLightroomTV.co.uk website. So I've highlighted these 5 images. I'm using mini bridge in Photoshop. Okay, but you can easily use Bridge or you can do it from Photoshop. And I'll go to this icon here, to the tools. In Bridge you go to Tools menu, Photoshop, and Merge to HDR Pro. Okay, you will see this message if you use JPEG images. I'll just press OK. I know I should use raw images and I used raw images in the original. Now what's going to happen is Photoshop is going to open all 5 images, and in just a moment it will open the Merge to HDR Pro dialog box. Here's the Merge to HDR Pro dialog box that opens, a big window. I can see all 5 images at the bottom of the screen, and here's the resulting image. Now it looks really good. I mean, I can see all the highlights, I can see the shadows. Now I may want to tone it down a bit because it's very bright. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the 16-bit mode, a local adaptation, and I'll jump into the presets. And I'm going to use, I'll try saturated. Okay, looks nice. Or more saturated. Okay, now this brings a very interesting effect. That's what we target in here. This looks really good. We're more saturated. Now I'll just adjust it a bit. So gamma is going to adjust the difference between the highlights and the shadows. If I just move it to the left, I'm increasing the contrast between highlights and the shadows, so I'm going to increase it just a bit. I'll lower the exposure a bit to darken the tone it down a bit, not too much. Okay, about that. Okay, now I can increase the edge glow by changing the radius or lower it down, and that's what I'm going to do here for our interesting effect. Maybe a bit less than that. Maybe even less than that, about 30-40 pixels. This looks interesting, and that's the kind of effect that I was looking for. So simple as that. Now I can just press OK and exit it. and go back to Photoshop. Okay, this will open this image in Photoshop in just a moment with our HDR effect. Okay, just to show it bigger, I'm going to press F twice to jump into full screen mode. I've hide my rulers. This is a keyboard shortcut for you, a trick. Control R or Command R on the Mac, and I use Control 0 or Command 0 to jump into full screen to fit the image in window, and that's our HDR effect. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this in Photoshop with creating a very interesting HDR effect from a series of images. A very interesting, very surrealistic effect, and very easy to achieve now with Photoshop CS5 with Merge to HDR Pro. Now I've got a tutorial in Lightroom for you. Lightroom 3 especially, because Lightroom 3 introduced loads of new features into photographers' workflow. And what I want to talk about today is the sharpening images in Lightroom 3. Now, sharpening images in Lightroom 3 is totally different from, well, not totally different, but it's been hugely improved now with the Lightroom 3 release. So I want to show you some really interesting features and how to sharpen your images using Adobe Photoshop Lightroom 3. So let's have a look on that, and I will be back for some more interesting content. So let's start with Lightroom. Here I am inside Lightroom 3. Let's get sharpening. So I've got this image open. I'm just going to zoom in. So you can see it's not really that sharp. It's still loading the image because it's a high-res RAW file. But I may need some sharpening. As you remember, as you know, if you've ever used Photoshop, you should be working on 100% view when you sharpen the images. Okay, that's what you would need to do in the previous versions of Lightroom. Now I'm going to change it back to fit. I'll jump into the develop module with this image selected. I'll collapse the bottom panel and the top panel by pressing F5 and F6 so I can see the image bigger. And now in the develop module I'll scroll down to detail tab. Okay, and here in Lightroom 3 you'll see the window, and this window is actually zoomed into 100% view. That's how the image looks in 100% view, and I can move it around so I can focus on these icicles and the letters, because I've got the letters here. Letter A, that's where I'm here, and here I can sharpen the image within the detail section. So I'm going to move the amount slider like in Photoshop to increase. I'll just crank it a lot so you can see what's happening here. So I can see what's happening here in 100% view, and I'm also looking at the image on the fit to screen view. Okay, that's before, very soft. That's after, very sharp. Now definitely too sharp, so I'm going to lower it down to about 80 or 90. Let's see, about 78. Looks good. You can see I can click to zoom out and click to zoom in to 100% view. I'm just clicking on it. So there's the letter A. If it's too sharp, I can mask it out a bit. So I can move the masking slider to mask it out a bit. Okay, get slightly better. It's still really sharp. You may also notice this tool here. What this tool does is you can click on it. Sometimes you need to click on it a few times. Okay, and now I can move my cursor around the image, and the preview in the details section changes. So I can see the icicles. They're quite sharp, they look good. Okay, so that's how you sharpen the images in Lightroom 3. This was a tutorial in Lightroom on sharpening your images in Lightroom 3. I hope you enjoyed it, and next one will be in Adobe Bridge. Even though our show is called Photoshop LightroomTV, I do spend quite a lot of time in Bridge. Mostly because Bridge is a very powerful application. There's so much you can do with Adobe Bridge, and many people have not really used it. Many people don't appreciate what Bridge can do for them. Okay, so I'll do some tutorials on Bridge from time to time. I'll give you an example as well. Recently, one of the persons on the Adobe forums have a problem with Photoshop. Photoshop wasn't creating HDR images. Whenever this person was trying to create HDR images, it was just crashing and didn't open the HDR window. So I posted a reply to this person saying, okay, before we target any problems within Photoshop, try to do it from Bridge. Open Bridge, open your images within Bridge, and then go to Tools menu, and then Photoshop Merge to HDR Pro. Now this person was really surprised knowing that you can do it from within Bridge as well. And it came out, it worked just fine from within Bridge. So this is just a few things that you can do within Adobe Bridge. Alright, so let's have a look on Bridge. This time I will be talking about stacking your images with Adobe Bridge. If you have a series of images that are of the same theme, sometimes you don't want to see them, all of them, especially if you have loads of images with a folder. So what you can do is you can stack your images in Adobe Bridge, and just one image on the top will show, and you can always expand and collapse the stack really easily. This is another very interesting feature with Adobe Bridge. So let's have a look on that. Here I am inside of Adobe Bridge, and this time we'll talk about stacking images. Sometimes you'll have loads of images from the same series, loads of shots from the same series, and don't want to see them all. In this example, I've got 5 images of the shot of a bar in the Cotswolds, and I don't need to see them all. One would be enough. For example, this one looks pretty good. This is the series of images I used in the Merge to HDR Pro. Now, I don't need all these images within Bridge, so I'm going to stack them together. So there's less images here in the Bridge view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select them all. So I'll select the first one, I'll hold the Shift key and click on the last one. And I'll go to Stacks in the menu, Group as Stack. You can also use Control G, Command G, the same keyboard shortcut that's used in Photoshop for what? For grouping layers. Yes, that's the same keyboard shortcut. And now these images are in a stack. You can see it says here number 5, which means there are 5 images in a stack. I can expand the stack by clicking on number 5, and I can collapse the stack in exactly the same way. Okay, so this is the stack. Now there's less images within Adobe Bridge. Now you may say, okay, it looks good, it looks fine, but you know what, I don't like the image that's on the top. I wish there was a different image here, maybe this one here, this one looks better. No problem at all. I'll select this image here, and I'll go to Stacks, Promote to Top of Stack, and this image will move to the top of the stack. So now when I collapse the stack, this image is on the top. As simple as that. Now what else can we do? Well, let's say you want to remove one of the, let's say we want to add another image to the stack, and then we're going to remove it. So I'm going to take one of the images, or maybe this one. This is the image of the same pub. So I'm going to drag it here into the stack. Now this image is within the stack. Okay. If I don't like it, I can select it, I can go to Stacks and ungroup from stack. So this image is back. As simple as that. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. This is how you use stacks in Adobe Bridge. Welcome again. This was the tutorial in Adobe Bridge. Now, just in case you just joined me. This is PhotoshopLightroomTV. I'm your host Marek Mularczyk from sitetraining.co.uk. A few words about Photoshop and Lightroom. Just to keep you updated, there were some updates for Adobe Photoshop. The latest update to Adobe Photoshop is the 0.3. So there were 3 updates since Photoshop CS5 was released. Especially if you on Windows XP, make sure you update to 0.3 update, because this fixes loads of bugs on Windows XP. The latest version of Lightroom is Lightroom 3.3, so if you run in 3.2 or 3, make sure you update to 3.3 version. Okay, now it's time for our tip of the week. This tip of the week will be in Photoshop, and I'll be expanding on it next week on the tutorial. Sometimes when you're working on an image inside of Photoshop, you would like to have maybe another window open with the same image, so you could zoom in on one window and zoom out on the other window so you can see and compare them both. Now you can do it with Photoshop. With the image opened, go to Window menu, Arrange, and New Window. New Window 4, and you see the name of your file. This will open another window with the same image. Okay? Now I'm going to expand on it next week in Photoshop Lightroom TV. So that's it for this week. I'm afraid I'll hope to see you next week on episode 26. Once again, I'm Marek Mularczyk from SiteTrain.co.uk, and this was Photoshop Lightroom TV, episode 25. Thank you for staying by, thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye bye.